Hello everyone, this is Bhava.
And this is Kishore. Welcome to our channel.
Are you planning to move to Canada?
And you're still not sure how to go about submitting your PR application?
Then you have come to the right place.
In this video, we are going to talk to you about our experience with Canadian immigration and about life in Canada in general for a new immigrant. So stay tuned. So we moved to Canada from India in the year 2017, and our journey started sometime in the mid of 2016 when Kishore made a business trip to Ottawa that year. And I really think that was the starting point.
Yeah, I came to Ottawa in the mid of 2016 for a short business trip. That was my first trip to any North American city. I was very much excited about the trip. However, there were a lot of doubts in mind that how the place would be and what is there in store for me. However, I came to Ottawa. I stayed there for 2 months. It was a summer. It was summer during that time, and the weather was very beautiful, and I really liked the place. People were very good, and they were very warm and welcoming. So that kind of created a very positive thing in my mind for Canada, and I strongly felt that the quality of life here in Canada is much better. And I started exploring options for immigrating to Canada. And once I returned back to India, I discussed this with my family, and we further explored opportunities or options that we have to immigrate to Canada. And that is when we came across something called as Express Entry program. We realized that this is one of the program which is a fast way to immigrate to Canada, and it is best suited for a skilled person like me. So we went ahead and we gathered all the information required for applying for this under this program, and we would be sharing about those details in our video further, that what the documentation process is, what are all the various steps that are involved in applying for an Express Entry program. So Express Entry was the thing that we applied, and we always wanted to come down to Ontario because that is a place which had got a lot of opportunities in the field in which both of us were working. And right from the beginning, we were very clear we have to come for Ontario, but we didn't apply for the specific program or Ontario PNP program. We applied for under the general pool in Express Entry, and it took about a year for us to complete the process and get the PR. So there are there were two steps which we can say broadly for an Express Entry. One is the phase before you get an invitation to apply, which is when you have to collect certain documents and you have to submit to the immigration department, where they would based on their scores, based on certain criterias which Bhava would explain you later in the video, they would assess whether you are eligible to come to Canada, and they will invite you to apply for a PR process. And then the second is the actual PR process, where you submit another set of documents, and based on that a decision is made whether you get a PR or not. So we would be covering all this extensively in our video, and we would share all the information and that we know and the our experiences with you, so that it helps you to plan your immigration properly. And we would be more than happy to help you and answer your questions. So let's get started.
Let's look at the different steps involved in applying for PR through Express Entry. Now, there are two major steps involved in this process. The first is where you'll be submitting a set of application to the Express Entry pool. Now, here is where the immigration is trying to understand whether you're eligible to apply for PR. Now, how do they do this? They look at certain factors in your profile, and based on those factors, your profile is going to be scored. And they use a system called Comprehensive Ranking System, or CRS, to do this. Now, once you submit your documents to the Express Entry pool, your profile gets the CRS score. And every time the immigration conducts the rounds of invitation, if your CRS score is equal to or above the cutoff CRS score in that particular round of invitation, then you get what they call as the invitation letter, or the ITA. That will then take you to the next step, which is where you will be actually submitting an application for PR processing. There again, you will have to submit a set of documents like police certificate, medical exam, and proof of funds. So once you submit these documents, the immigration reviews your profile once again, and if they approve, you get your PR. Now let's look at these things in detail. When I mentioned that they look at your eligibility for applying for PR, what I meant is the immigration has a set of basic requirements that they are looking for in an individual who is applying for PR. Now, these requirements depend on the type of immigration program that you're applying to. Say, for example, we applied through the Federal Skilled Workers Program, that is the FSW. Now, under the FSW program, they have certain selection factors. And what are they? They include age, education, previous work experience, whether or not you have a valid job offer, your language skills, and finally, your adaptability. Let me give you an example. If your age is between 18 to 35, then your profile gets a score of 12, and this is the maximum score you can get for age. This score keeps decreasing as your age increases. The next is education. Now, the immigration will not accept your documents related to your degree or your diploma certificates directly. What you must do is you will be submitting your certificates and pertaining to your education to a designated organization like the WES, and the WES will assess your educational qualification, and they call it as Educational Credential Assessment, ECA. Now, when the WES finishes your evaluation, they will send the report directly to the immigration. The next is work experience. Now, if you are someone who wants to come to Canada through the FSW PR program, then you are supposed to be having your work experience in certain categories. Now, there are several categories which the immigration classifies certain job types, but with respect to FSW, there are only 3 categories. That is skill type 0, skill type A, and skill type B. Now, if your work experience in the past is around managerial level, then you are someone with a skill type 0. If you have a degree, if you have a university degree, a professional, like a doctor or a dentist or an architect, then you're somebody with a skill type A. If you have skilled, training, like a chef or a plumber or an electrician, then you are someone with a skill type B. Now, what happens is, based on the different job categories that you fall into, and based on the number of years of experience that you have, your scores will vary. The other important thing to note about this job offer that you have is, if you have a valid job offer from a Canadian organization, which is valid for at least a year or more, then you get additional points on your profile. The next thing is language skills, and this is basically nothing but your IELTS exam. The higher the band you score, the more score you get in your profile. The last is adaptability. Now, what the government is trying to understand here is how adaptable you will be to life in Canada, and whether or not you're going to be depending too much on their social resources. For example, if you have studied in the past in Canada, or you have worked in Canada for at least a year or more, and depending on your language skills, your scores, you will get extra points on adaptability. Or say, for example, you have a sibling or a blood relative in Canada, then you get additional points in your profile. Now, as I mentioned, these are the different factors based on which your profile is evaluated. And once you evaluate your profile, you get your CRS score. Can you check your CRS score before you submit your application? Yes, you can. What you must do is go onto the immigration website and look for the CRS tool calculator. I'll leave a link for that in the description box below. When you go onto that website, what you will find are a set of questions based on these different factors that we just discussed. And as you answer those questions, in the end, you will see that if, for that particular person's information, you will find the CRS score at the bottom. Now, I'll give you another tip. Say, for example, if the two of you in a family are applying for PR together, like a husband and a wife. Now, between the two of you, you get to decide who is going to be your primary applicant for the PR application. Say, for example, if your wife is younger and she has a higher educational qualification, or she has more work experience, or if she has a valid job offer, or any of these points, on these different factors, if she scores more or if she's better than the other person, then wife will be, could be your primary applicant. Now, when you go onto that website that I mentioned, you will be able to see that the questions are framed in such a way that it will ask you about the primary applicant and the spouse information as well. So even though the information about the spouse is also entered and considered, more weightage is given for the primary applicant. Also, don't forget that IELTS is a major part of your CRS score. So depending on who scores the maximum in your IELTS exam, you can decide who can be your primary applicant. All right, so I think we'll stop here for now. And in our next video, we'll take you through the different steps that you have to follow in submitting your PR application after you get your ITA. We really hope you guys enjoyed our video. Please do leave us some comments. You can also follow us on Instagram. And if you really liked our video, please do consider subscribing. We'll see you soon in our next video. Until then, take care.